Welcome to Deep Thoughts, a podcast designed to take you on an introspective journey into the mindsets and strategies that fuel personal growth. In every episode, we'll explore the intersection of psychology, spirituality, and real-world tactics, guiding you through powerful methods to elevate your health, wealth, relationships, and overall well-being. From deep dives into transformative habits and mindsets to candid discussions about the challenges we face in today's fast-paced world, Deep Thoughts is here to remind you of the untapped potential that lies within. If you're ready to disconnect from the distractions and connect with the tools and insights needed to create lasting change, this show is your sanctuary for self-discovery and empowerment. Tune in, reflect, and take action towards a more vibrant and fulfilling life.
We've been talking about this idea, walking and creativity, and it's something that I think we all kind of intuitively get. I think this will be a really fun deep dive. What do you think?
Yeah, I think so too. I think one of the things that surprised me the most was that it's not just this fluffy idea that walking is good for you, but there's actually some pretty hard science to back it up. Like, for instance, the Stanford study found that walking can increase creative output by like a whopping 60%.
50%?
Yeah, 60%. And that's both indoors and outdoors.
Really? So it doesn't even have to be like...
Doesn't have to be in nature.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. It's just the act of walking itself seems to have some kind of effect.
But okay, so 60%, that's a huge number.
It is a huge number.
But why? Like, what's actually happening in our brains when we walk that could lead to such a jump in creativity?
So there are a couple of things that the research points to.
Okay.
One is that walking increases blood flow to the brain.
Okay.
And when that happens, it also helps trigger the release of something called BDNF, which is brain-derived neurotrophic factor.
Okay.
But basically what it is it's this protein that's essential for growth and health of our brain cells.
So more BDNF essentially is like more fertile ground for having these...
Yeah, think of BDNF as like fertilizer for your neurons.
Yep.
It helps them connect and communicate more effectively, which is really important for creative thinking.
So that's BDNF.
That's BDNF.
But is there anything else going on?
Yeah, there's also, it seems to activate our brain's default mode network, or the DMN.
DMN?
Yeah, and you know that feeling when you're just kind of like lost in thought, daydreaming, letting your mind wander?
Yeah, for sure.
That's the DMN at work.
Okay, so is that linked to creativity? Because it seems kind of counterintuitive.
It does, but I think when you think about it, it makes sense. Because when you're not focused on a specific task, your mind is free to just make these connections that you might not have made otherwise.
So it's like that downtime is actually really important.
It is really
for making those creative breakthroughs.
Yeah, the DMN is where we process emotions, we reflect on experiences, we kind of make these surprising leaps of insight lead to creative breakthroughs. So walking seems to kind of prime our brains for this kind of open-ended associative thinking.
Okay, so I'm thinking about all the famous walkers throughout history.
Right.
Like, Aristotle, who actually conducted his discussions with his students while they were walking, and they formed what was called the Peripatetic School.
Yeah, the walking school.
It literally means walking school.
Yeah.
And then you have like Charles Dickens, who was said to walk an average of 30 miles a day. Yeah, like just pounding the pavement. And I mean, that makes you think, right? Like, was he just exercising, or was he also using that time to really kind of work through his novels and his characters?
Yeah, I mean, it makes you wonder if those walks weren't just exercise for him, but also like a way to work through those complex narratives.
Like it provided the space for him to just kind of let those stories unfold in his mind.
Yeah, and then you have someone like, in a more recent time, Steve Jobs, who was a big advocate for walking meetings.
Walking meetings, yeah.
I mean, he seemed to understand that movement led to more dynamic thinking.
It's interesting how all these people across different fields and different eras kind of converged on this idea of walking as a way to stimulate their thinking, you know? But I think for us, the question is like, what can we take from this?
Right.
Like, what can we learn and how can we apply it?
One of the sources you sent, the article from Entrepreneur, the author Tracy Tilson created this whole platform called Walkie Take.
Walkie Take, I love that.
Yeah.
So catchy.
Yeah. And it's entirely built around this concept of using walking to unlock your creative potential.
So this is like taking that ancient practice and making it relevant for today.
Absolutely.
That's so interesting. And it makes you wonder if something as simple as walking can have such a huge impact on our creativity, like what other hidden potential are we overlooking in our everyday lives?
I think that's a really powerful question.
Yeah.
I mean, it really challenges us to look at our routines, our habits,
Yeah.
and see like, okay, are there little tweaks we can make that would make a big difference?
Absolutely. It's like we're rediscovering the power of our own bodies
Yeah,
and minds
for sure.
to generate that creative energy.
Yeah.
But before we go too far down that road, I think we need to talk about how walking actually benefits our brains
Okay.
and our well-being, because it's clearly more than just a way to get from point A to point B.
Absolutely. I mean, the implications go way beyond generating ideas. It's really about our overall cognitive function, our mood, our ability to handle stress and anxiety.
Okay, now this is what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
So let's get into that a little bit more.
Yeah.
Why is walking so good for us mentally and emotionally?
Well, I think first we have to go back to the physiological effects.
Right.
Remember those mood-boosting neurotransmitters we were talking about, like serotonin and endorphins?
And those are the ones that make you feel happy,
Yeah, make you feel good.
relaxed.
And walking actually triggers their release.
Interesting.
So it acts like a natural mood elevator.
So it's like a natural antidepressant, but without the side effects?
Yeah, in a way, yeah.
Okay.
But it's also more than just the chemical changes. Walking also lets us physically remove ourselves from stressful environments,
I totally get that.
which can be incredibly beneficial.
Like sometimes when I'm feeling overwhelmed or anxious, I'll just step away from my desk and walk around the block, and it really makes a difference.
Right. And that change of scenery can be so powerful.
Yeah.
It allows you to shift your perspective, clear your head, and then come back to whatever you were doing with kind of a renewed sense of focus and calm.
It's like a reset
It is a reset.
button for your mind
Yeah.
and your body. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay, but what about people who like really struggle with racing thoughts or anxiety? Can walking actually help with that?
I think so, because walking can be a form of moving meditation.
Okay.
Like the rhythmic motion of your steps can actually help to calm those anxious thoughts.
It's like your feet are keeping time with
Yeah,
your breath, and
right.
it just creates that natural rhythm
That's right.
that kind of soothes your mind and body. One of the sources also mentioned this concept of serendipity,
Oh, yeah.
how walking can actually lead to those aha moments where it's like these seemingly unrelated ideas suddenly connect in your mind.
Mm-hmm.
Have you ever experienced that?
Absolutely. I think it creates those ideal conditions for those creative breakthroughs to happen.
Okay.
It's that kind of perfect balance of movement and mental freedom.
So it's like your conscious mind is taking a break and letting your intuition and your creativity kind of
Yeah. Hey,
take over.
and you're not bombarded with the same level of distractions as when you're, at your desk or scrolling through your phone.
Right. You're just kind of present in the moment.
Yeah, you have that detachment from the digital world
Yeah.
that allows your mind to wander more freely, which is when those unexpected connections happen.
So it's like giving your brain the space it needs
Yeah.
to actually come up with these new solutions
Exactly.
that you wouldn't have thought of otherwise.
And, the research suggests that this effect is even more potent when we're walking in nature.
Oh, that makes sense.
There's something about being surrounded by the natural world that seems to just spark our creativity, open us up to new possibilities.
Yeah.
One of the sources even talked about the Japanese practice of Shinrin-yoku, or forest bathing,
I love that.
which emphasizes the benefits of immersing yourself in nature.
It makes sense, though, right?
It does.
When you're surrounded by like all this beauty and tranquility,
Yeah.
it's hard not to feel like a sense of peace and
No.
inspiration. Yeah.
You're tapping into that deeper connection with something larger than yourself.
It's kind of awe-inspiring in a way.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Wow, this is all really fascinating. So before we wrap up this first part of our deep dive,
Yeah.
what would you say is the biggest takeaway
Mm-hmm.
from all this research on walking and creativity? Like, what's the one thing you hope our listener takes away from this conversation?
I think the most important thing is to remember that walking is more than just a physical activity.
Oh.
It's a way to really enhance your mental and emotional well-being. It's a way to boost your creativity,
Okay.
reduce stress, gain some clarity, and reconnect with yourself.
In the world around you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. I think our listener is going to be putting on their walking shoes
Yeah.
and hitting the pavement with a whole new perspective after this.
I hope so.
Yeah.
It's funny because we started with the science and now we're seeing how this ancient practice is being brought into like the modern world.
Yeah, and it really makes you think, if walking has been this like constant source of inspiration, like solace even for people throughout history, what potential are we unlocking every time we just step out the door and go for a walk?
Yeah, it's like there's this creative wellspring inside of us that's just waiting to be tapped.
Oh, I love that. One thing that really struck me from the research was how walking doesn't just benefit our creativity, but it also has this incredible ability to reduce stress and anxiety.
Oh, yeah, for sure. It goes back to those mood-boosting neurotransmitters that we talked about earlier, like serotonin and endorphins. They have such a big impact on how we feel. They can make us feel calmer, more relaxed.
So it's like a natural form of stress management.
Exactly. And, it really makes you think, like, is that why so many people find walking to be so therapeutic?
It's like moving meditation in a way.
Exactly. You get that time for introspection, to process your emotions, to let go of whatever might be weighing on you.
And it's not just about the chemical changes, right? It's also about removing ourselves from stressful environments.
For sure. Getting that fresh air.
Yeah, that change of scenery can be so beneficial.
Right.
When we're stuck inside all day staring at screens,
Oh, I know.
our minds can get so
Yeah.
cluttered.
Yeah, we get overwhelmed.
But when we step outside and immerse ourselves in nature,
Yeah.
it's like hitting the reset button on our nervous system.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Even if you can't walk in nature, just getting outside and changing your visual perspective can make a huge difference.
I know. Even a short walk around the block for me sometimes.
Yeah.
Just kind of centers me,
For sure.
And speaking of being present in the moment, one of the sources talked about serendipity.
Oh, yeah.
And how walking can actually lead to those aha moments where it's like, boom, these two seemingly unrelated ideas suddenly connect.
I love those moments.
Yeah, it's like walking creates the perfect conditions for those
Totally.
breakthroughs to happen.
Yeah, there's that balance between movement and mental freedom.
So it's like our conscious mind takes a break and our intuition and creativity kind of step in.
Exactly. And when you think about it, when we're walking, we're not being bombarded by all those distractions.
Oh my God.
that we have when we're sitting at our desk or
Oh,
scrolling through our phone.
emails, notifications, everything.
Exactly. So there's that detachment from the digital world that just lets our minds wander more freely.
And that's where those connections happen.
That's when those connections happen.
It's like giving our brains that space.
Yeah.
They need to process information and come up with those solutions.
And like we mentioned before, this is amplified when we're walking in nature.
It's like nature just sparks something in us.
Yeah. Absolutely.
This is also fascinating. So as we're wrapping up this deep dive into walking and creativity, what would you say is like the most compelling argument for incorporating more walking into our lives?
I think it's the fact that there's so much evidence coming from so many different places.
Okay.
We have the scientific studies, we have all the historical figures who swore by walking, and then we have modern day examples like Walkatate.
Yeah, it's all coming together.
It really is.
So for our listener who's been with us on this journey, what would you say is the most important takeaway? What's that one thing you want them to remember?
I think the most important thing is to remember this. Walking is not just about physical activity.
Okay.
It's an investment in your mental and emotional well-being. It's a way to be more creative, manage stress, and connect with yourself and the world around you.
Beautifully put.
Thank you.
I think that's the perfect note to end on. It's like we've uncovered this superpower that we didn't even realize we had.
And the best part is that anyone can access it.
Exactly.
It doesn't require any special equipment, any fancy training.
Just the willingness to move.
Yeah, just get out there.
And open your mind.
And be open to the possibilities, yeah.
It's a good reminder that sometimes the simplest things are the most powerful. It makes you wonder, like, if something as simple as walking can have such a big impact, what other hidden potential are we missing out on?
Oh, that's such a good question.
In our everyday lives.
Yeah.
What other simple practices could we be doing to unlock more creativity, well-being, just feeling more fulfilled?
I think that's a great question to leave our listeners with.
Yeah.
It's a good reminder that there's always something new to discover, both within ourselves and in the world around us.
Yeah.
And, sometimes all it takes is a willingness to step outside our comfort zones.
And see what's out there.
Yeah.
I love it. Well, I think we've given our listener plenty to think about as they lace up their walking shoes and head out on their next adventure.
I agree.
Keep those minds curious and those feet moving.
Thank you for tuning in to this episode of the Deep Thoughts Podcast. I hope you found insights and inspiration to take with you on your journey of self-growth. If you enjoyed the show, be sure to hit the subscribe button so you never miss an episode. And don't forget to follow us on social media to stay updated on new releases and exclusive content. See you next time, where we'll continue to help you grow and explore your full potential.